Hello, everybody. I managed to get my phone set up, so if I look like I'm way far away, I'm being like that guy in Sesame Street. He goes, near, far.
Wow, it takes a while for us to start go there, and it's already started.
Yeah, I know, and you know what? I forgot my drink in my other room, so you're gonna have to excuse me for just a second shortly because I got to go grab my drink. But I will be back.
Oh my God!
I know it's.
You're going to leave me unsupervised with these people?
Well, in a minute, yes. I'm going to. You're not even going. No, I'm gone. I'm going to slip out of here, and you won't even notice the time pass. Did anybody catch that?
Nope, not yet. But I'll keep track of time for you.
Oh, okay. Well, no, that is terrible. Yeah, that's terrible, Mike.
Hey, you know what? I write all my dad jokes on pieces of paper because they're terrible.
Amy goes, I caught it. Hello, Karen. Hello, Kay. Hello, Amy. And whoever else is watching, I'll be right back. Here goes my time. You can hear my time.
I'm all alone. I'm scared. I got nothing to say.
Did you see me leave?
No. You left?
I did. Oh, my Lord.
You look like you shaved a little.
I did shave a little.
Like, yeah.
It depends. Right there.
Hey, where'd you go?
Wow. Oh, well, the whole thing blacked out.
Yeah, that was weird.
I'm going to have to check my internet, folks. I had this problem last time, but it was a little better when I sat out here. I don't know what's going on with it, but Daryl time traveled to get Kool-Aid. It does look like Kool-Aid.
Yeah,
it's big glass of Kool-Aid.
It's Kool-Aid.
It's Kool-Aid. Oh, right. Well, folks, if you haven't guessed by now, and based on a little theme we put in there, what's tonight's episode about, Mike?
I don't know. Do you have the time to tell everybody?
I think we have the time. I think we have the time to tell everybody.
But make sure you don't slip it on any bananas.
Oh. That is terrible, Mike. Absolutely terrible.
I had to slip that one in there.
Time, it's a slippery slope. Yeah, people, we're talking about time slips. Now, I know we've talked about time in the past. I know that we've discussed time and the relevancy and all that kind of stuff. But our dear friend Amy had an experience earlier, and we'll get into that a little bit later. And she brought up the matter of time slips. So
I'm just going to turn on.
Here we are.
My volume is all the way up. Never mind.
Here we are to discuss time slips. So, did you find the meaning or the description of time slips, Mike?
I did. And it probably has the exact same webpage that you brought up, the meaning of time slips.
Well, if it's got a black screen and white writing, it probably is.
Mine's a white screen with black writing.
Different time.
Oh.
Okay, and what does yours say?
Okay, a time slip is a paranormal phenomenon in which an individual or a group of individuals allegedly travels through time, thereby witnessing events in the past. They can also be referred to as dimensional anomalies.
Anomalies?
Anomalies.
Okay, here's what I got. Time slips are spontaneous instances of time travel, according to Tim Schwartz. A time slip is an event where it appears that some other era has briefly intruded on the present. Time slips are a substance of time travel in which the instance is spontaneous and brief. So yeah, very close. So there you go. Two different places, two very, very similar descriptions of it. I don't know if I've ever actually experienced a time slip.
I don't know if I've, like, maybe perhaps, but usually for me it's like when I'm driving, which is probably the worst time to have one. But
well, yeah,
like maybe it's just totally not paying attention so much as, like, you know, when you're on a road trip and like you're coming home, say from the interior, because this is something that you recently did. And all of a sudden, you know, last thing you remember, you were in Hope, and then next thing you know, you're in Langley, and you don't remember anything in between.
Well, I've had that going from work to home.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, I guess I can say I've experienced that.
Yeah. And I experienced that too, and it's probably like the worst thing. I'm like sitting there going, I don't remember any of that drive. Now, is that really a time slip, or is that just because you're tired of driving and you just were clocked right out and you're just like zombie mode?
It goes to show how most of us drive, isn't it?
It's true.
Fresh brain.
That guy has fresh brains. Follow him.
That's right. That's right. Well, you wouldn't find that in Ottawa, but no, just kidding.
Karen says she's experienced that as well. So it's not just an us thing. As for like, there's some examples that came up, and I know we have Amy's story to tell as well of something that's recently happened to her. Now, when I read these stories, I can't say I've had anything quite like them.
Well, no, I mean, a while ago, I had an experience when I was driving. I was actually driving from my old place to work, and I don't know if it was a time slip or just an intersection of an event that either, I don't know if it happened actually even on that day or not. I don't know. I don't recall. I was driving down the road and I got the visual of, and I think I told you the story. I got the visual of a train station, and the train hitting, like, I don't know if it was a train station at the time. It was just buildings, and I got a picture of the train hitting the buildings, something falling, a woman being pushed out of the way, kind of something like that. And it was weird because it was like a visual while I'm driving. So I didn't really lose track of what I was driving. I still saw the road. I still knew I was on the number one, but it was just in the mind's eye. I could see it. So I don't know if that would be considered a time slip, sort of. Later on, when I found out there had been an event where a train had actually come into a station, hit the station, and one of the sections of building had collapsed and just about collapsed on a woman, but a guy had pushed her out of the way in time.
Is
It
that
was
more
really
like, because you have those abilities? Is that more like something where you are tapping into that rather than actually experiencing a time slip?
well, okay. So let me go back here because when I read you that piece, there was another part of that I didn't read. And this is what it says. And this is why I was wondering, and that's why I mentioned it. This guy also goes on to say time slips have alternatively been posted as hauntings, in which the person who experiences the time slip is actually encountering ghosts or a past memory that is strong enough at that particular place. However, when a person experiences a time slip, their surroundings also change, which seems to contradict the theory that time slips are merely incidences of visiting ghosts. But if it has some relevance in that, it might be. I don't know. It might be. It might be. I don't know. It was just something I thought I'd mention. Just
Hmm.
off, right?
Um, the information that I found here as well says the difference between a time slip and other alleged time travel phenomenon isn't hard and fast, but typically a time slip allows travel without any kind of time machine or other obvious mechanism or cause, and is usually only for a short period of time. Contemporary physics suggests it may be possible to travel back in time by passing through a wormhole, although a wormhole is unlikely to be found lying around in the street, or to permit transit without painful tidal forces. It may be microscopic or subatomic in size and may require powerful forces to maintain its existence.
And that's why it's so short-lived.
Yeah,
Interesting.
but
Okay.
is it so short-lived? Like it's like some of these, like Amy's story. Um, it was it was relatively short-lived, but there's other examples where it's like a whole weekend.
I don't think I've read. Well, I don't think I've read anything. Oh, yeah, you're right. If it's the one I think you're talking about, is it the hotel you're talking about?
The Vanishing Hotel. Yes.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. Tell them about the Vanishing Hotel. Like, guys, this is a one instance
Yes.
of this event, and I've got the same thing on my computer, so it's
Yeah.
rather interesting. It's quite a read. So
Yeah.
off you go.
So this was actually featured on a TV program in the UK. I believe ITV is in the UK. Kate would know that for sure. But
Mhm.
it involved two married couples, Jeff and Pauline Simpson, and Len and Cynthia Grisby, who stopped at an old-fashioned hotel while driving through France en route to Spain in October of 1979. After turning off the route and following an old cobbled road some distance, the couple spent the night at an inn that lacked modern conveniences such as telephones or elevators, or even glass in the windows. In fact, both husbands claimed to have taken photos of their wives standing in front of the shuttered windows in their respective rooms. 2 weeks later, on their way home, the group opted to stay at the hotel again, but could not find it. When the husbands developed the photos from their trip, those taken in the hotel were missing.
Well, not just the people in the hotel were missing. The whole hotel was gone.
Everything was gone.
Everything was gone. They even saw police. Did you say they were wearing policemen wearing uniforms?
No, there's nothing about that noted here, but
Somebody said a woman in silk, when they went down for the morning dining, a woman in a silk evening gown came in carrying a dog. And two policemen wearing uniforms, later identified from the date to the date of 1905, also sat down to eat. And it only cost them apparently £2 to stay the night. Yeah. But that would be really creepy to come back and there's no hotel.
two
Yet
weeks
you,
later and there's nothing there. It doesn't
yet
even
you,
exist.
yeah, yet you stayed in it.
Yeah.
I
And then
mean,
and the photos that were taken are not on the camera.
yes, then yes, that is creepy.
Right?
That is downright bizarrely creepy because I mean, if you know you took pictures, I mean, literally, if you went into a place and took pictures and then went back and they were gone,
Yeah.
you'd be going like, what the heck?
Like, how does that happen? I know back in 1979, obviously well before digital, so everything was, you know, good old fashioned film photography. But still, like, it still works the way it
Well,
should,
I would be more inclined to believe something from the 1920s than the digital era.
right?
Digital, you can lose.
You can lose
19,
very easily, but when you are working with film,
yeah,
it doesn't get lost, especially if they
no,
took multiple photos.
yeah, exactly,
The only
exactly.
thing, the only thing I could think of is if there was like anyone that operates a camera would know how it works. But I mean, if they had gone past, like, say you have a roll of 36, you've gone past the 36, you keep snapping photos. Yes, it appears to be working, but it's not actually capturing the photos. That's the only thing I could think of. But most people back then knew that's how that worked.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
when you reach that point, right, you'd stop and change your roll. But
That is just bizarre. Did you have
it is
did you
bizarre.
have did you have the one of the White House?
I don't know if I have one about the White House.
Not the presidential White House. I'm
Okay.
afraid. No, this one, and this is another example, guys. Just for instance, in 1971, a pickup truck trundled up to a cattle pasture near Ponca, Ponca, Ponca. Never heard of it. Ponca City, Oklahoma. Stopping at the gate, its occupants had been sent there to pick up a feeder. Carl said, we opened the gate, which was barbed wire with no lock, and entered. We went onto the property, which was covered with grass, up to and over the hood of the truck. They drove their pickup through the grass to the feeder and got out. We realized the tank was almost half full and too heavy to load. Carl said, we decided to leave and drove around a red barn, and we saw a large two-story white house with no lights in front of us. So they went back to their employer and explained, and their boss said he'd drain the tank so they could pick it up the next day. We went to the location to retrieve the tank the next night. Carl said, this time we decided to go through the old white big house on the hill and they brought their shotguns, of course. This is Oklahoma. What they saw was incomprehensible. In the house, the house was no longer there. Carl said, we walked up the hill where it stood, and there were no signs of demolition, no foundation, nothing at all. What we all seemed to witness the night before was no longer there. We have talked to each other over the years, but none of us can begin to explain this vision. Pretty bizarre.
See, like examples like that, I can't say I've ever experienced anything quite like that, where you vividly remember something like a building and it's no, like it's not there, but you vividly remember it like from like the day before,
Yeah,
or in the case of this vanishing hotel, 2 weeks before.
it's a bizarre thing. It is definitely a bizarre thing. Now, as we said in the beginning, Amy,
Yeah,
her friend Amy, had what she describes as a possible time slip, right?
yeah. She suspects this is a time slip.
So let's explain to everybody exactly what happened.
Okay, so these are Amy's words. Okay, pretend I'm Amy. Got blonde hair now. I don't know if she's blonde right now. I can't tell. Amy, you can confirm that in the comment.
Amy, you got to shave a little
Um,
bit.
Amy, you need to shave. Um, okay, she says, I had a very strange experience last week when I was taking my dog for a walk. I was about 4 houses away from a house where a man and his son, who I'd say was about 13 to 14 years old, was standing outside washing the car. I clearly saw the boy in a t-shirt, basketball shorts, and runners holding the water hose and washing the car that was parked on the road. He was standing no more than 3 feet from his dad. They didn't say anything to one another, as far as I could tell, before a bug flew in my face. I shook my head, swatted the bug, and that is when I noticed that there was no boy standing there at all. It was just the dad standing there with the hose washing the vehicle. The boy would have had to disappear within about 3 seconds and there was nowhere for him to go. This literally stopped me in my tracks, and I pretended to let my dog sniff on a bush while I collected my thoughts. I was so insanely confused. I didn't know the man nor his kid, so I wasn't going to be the creepy stranger asking someone where their child went. Good call, Amy. All I know is that they were too far away from the house for the boy to have gone anywhere without me noticing. She immediately went home and told her story to you and me, but kind of regretted it because I felt like I was going a bit insane. I just can't explain this one, and it got me thinking more about time slips.
That it's interesting. Now, Amy did send me pictures, but because um, there is somebody actually on there, I wouldn't want to put it up because you don't know who's going to recognize who, right?
Right.
But when I looked at the pictures she sent, um, my first thought was, could the little boy have walked, back behind the car, or anything like that? I mean, if that was the case, the kid would have had to move pretty quick. Number
Yeah.
one, to even reach the car, and number two, to line up perfectly with the tire at the back end, because you can actually see in the picture underneath the car. So I couldn't see anything that would even remotely resemble that, let alone a shadow or something that would indicate somebody standing on the opposite side of the car. And I really don't see where he would have gone. So I can understand why you would think, or at least think like that was really bloody strange.
Now, like, was it a time slip, or is, like, again, like you mentioned, some people refer to a time slip as a haunting or seeing a ghost. Now,
Mm-hmm.
was Amy seeing a ghost?
Well, that's I kind of alluded to that when I talked to her originally too. Would that have been like, do we know the person? Could the person be asked if he had a son or something
Yeah.
like that? But then again, it could have been. I mean, for a split second, she might have saw something that happened, a minute before she ever got there.
Yeah.
Right? That would be considered a form of a time slip.
Yes, if she was like seeing a blend of something that happened before, and then just all of a sudden jumping back to reality when the bug flew in her face,
Yeah.
right? It just kind of blended together, and she's kind of like, "What the hell did I just see?"
Yeah, exactly.
The fact that she could visually identify everything, like she was saying, like, um, 3 feet away from his dad, he was wearing a t-shirt, he's wearing basketball shorts and runners. Like, she had enough information to go by where she could, describe the boy, right? Like, I don't know, maybe if you could put in the comments if you had any more details, even like, what color was his hair or anything like that. But I think it's just pretty amazing that, you can remember exactly those kind of details, and all of a sudden he's not there.
Well, she did say I stood back a moment to take a picture to see if the kid would reemerge, and I didn't see him again. I thought ghost, but then I thought time slip. I have no clue. Kay said maybe do some research on the area, Amy, and see if there was a fatality. Obviously, modernish. I mean, it's possible modernish could account for a long time, but I mean, that's true too. But if the kid was talking to the man, then you would think he would probably know him, unless he's just trying to get his attention. Well, here's a question, Amy. Did it look like a casual conversation between two people that actually knew each other? I mean, that would be, I guess, a logical question to ask. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seemed really weird, and it did bring up um, a lot of thoughts actually when I was sitting there thinking, as paranormal investigators, we deal with so many different things and encounter so many different things, and it's almost a wonder as to whether Amy said I didn't see them talk to each other at all, so they were just standing there. So that's what Kay just asked, was audible. So she didn't hear anything, Kay. Karen just wrote, 2016, Gordon and I had an experience walking on a coastal trail in Cornwall, England. This young woman was walking hang on. This young woman was walking in front of us. She would stop, take photos, and we would pass her. Hang on a second. Then all of a sudden, she would be in front of us again. That's weird. Was she running by? You guys weren't paying attention or something? Like, I mean, was she, were you smooching cord or something? She ran by. I mean, no, but I can understand that. Okay, Karen, that's really weird. That's definitely interesting, especially if you're just walking along and you're looking around. I mean, if she would have noticed, I think if she would have passed you.
Yeah.
Kate or Amy said, I have look at. I have what? Well, what? I have looked a bit. I looked a bit, okay, but I haven't found anything at all yet. I will keep looking. Okay.
I would say, Amy, if you happen to see the guy again out front and like no sun or anything like that, you can just say like I know you live in a neighborhood that's probably pretty safe, so like just go up and casually like say like I saw a boy here the other day and I'm just kind of curious. Like, do you have a son? Like, I don't see that there's any harm in that, right? And if he says no, then just like, okay, thanks. Like, I just, he looked familiar. Like, you could always say that to people, right? Like, I saw a boy here about 13, 14, looked really familiar.
Well, I guess here's a thought, Amy. Did he look anything like Dad? Right? I mean, if he looks something similar, but then again, you never know. Kids change, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, I didn't look a lot like my dad when I was a kid, even though people said I did. I didn't think I did. I'm like, I don't look like my old man. And everybody's like, you look like your old man. Yeah, shh.
and Karen, your case, like, was the lady that kept getting in front of them, pardon me, was she wearing like modern day clothes? Was she wearing clothes that were from a bygone era? Like, I'm just kind of curious about that too, right?
That's interesting thought too. There's so many plausibilities and possibilities that you have to wonder. I mean, there's another. Did you read any stories about anything in Liverpool, Mike, by chance?
Liverpool. The only thing that comes up about Liverpool is Bold Street.
Yes, exactly. You are bang on the money. Bold Street.
Yeah.
It is actually well known to people that follow the concepts of time slips, that it is a well-known street that seems to have an awful lot of occurrences happen around them. People report weird things all the time on Bold Street. I don't know what it is about Bold Street, but they say it all the time. Now, I got a couple of instances, but let me just go back for a second. Amy said, I walk my dog past this house daily. I will keep an eye out. It's interesting to me, though, that the house this occurred at was actually a forested area about 10 years ago. Okay, that's interesting. Karen says she was goth girl dressed up in goth outfit, dark long hair. It wasn't all wet like she climbed out of a friggin' well, was it? Had to go there, Karen. Had to go there. Don't watch her.
Was her name Samantha?
That's right. There is an instance. There was two of them that I read, but I can't find the other one. But there was two incidences. Oh, maybe they're both here. Back in 1996, Frank was out shopping and decided to visit HMV to look for a CD. As he walked along near the post office, he suddenly felt as if he'd stepped into an oasis of quietness. He was then shocked to see a small box van reminiscent of the 1950s speed across his path, narrowly missing him and honking its horn. Frank realized that he was now standing in the middle of the road and looking at what should have been Dylan's bookstore. The shop now had Crips on its sign. Inside, he saw upmarket ladies' handbags and shoes, no books. Now, there's more to this story, but I'll get back to that. Frank followed a young woman inside and watched in disbelief as the interior snapped back to Dylan's. The girl was still there, and Frank grabbed her arm, asking her if she'd seen the same thing. She replied, yes. I thought it was a clothes shop. I was going to look around, but it's a bookstore. So both of them saw two different things where the shop was. Now, in the longer version of this, he did notice a change, and the truck that honked at him actually had crypts on the side of it. And those, like as it was said, crypts hadn't been around for probably 40 years or more. So that was one thing that was weird. Yeah, it's weird. Just like he said, everything was like just, it wasn't completely clear. It was slightly abstract, like, almost like you're having like one of those, you're not drunk, but you've drank a little bit kind of feel to it. Right. But he wasn't by any means. I mean, so that's an interesting one. And there is one more. And now this one's rather interesting too. And this also happened on Bowl Street, right? So she was goth, dressed in goth, long dark hair. She had a modern camera. I would say a modern camera. Most people carry cell phones. Interesting. That's what Karen said. I said,
Well, at that time, maybe cameras were still a little bit more popular.
No, this is the one Karen was talking about.
Yeah, but I mean, how long ago was it? Was she when, like she said in 2016? Yeah, you still use cameras then.
Yeah. Another instant. Oh my God. Another thing happened in Liverpool. Involved a teenager named Imogen who went out shopping to buy some baby clothes for her older sister, who had just become a mom. Imogen noticed a new branch of mother care had opened on the corner of Lord Street, and she went inside and selected some pretty items, including polka dot bibs and a pink velour cardigan, all at a surprisingly low price. However, when she tried to pay with her credit card, confused staff told her they couldn't accept it. Not having enough cash, she went to another store before returning home. When she told her mom about the new mother care, Imogen was irritated to find that the mother refused to believe the store existed, as she knew it had closed years before and was now a bank. Her mother banked there. The pair quarreled and decided to return to the site. Sure enough, the mother care was no longer there, and in its place was a branch of HSBC. That's pretty cool too.
I have a short story here as well. Colin Wilson and John Grant's The Directory of Possibilities includes mention of a man who purportedly purchased envelopes from an Edwardian shop clerk. The man, his name was Mr. Squirrel.
Mr. Squirrel.
Yes.
He was nuts.
He claimed that in 1973, he entered a stationery shop in Great Yarmouth to get some envelopes. He was attended to by a woman in Edwardian dress and bought 3 dozen envelopes for $1. Returning 3 weeks later, he found the shop completely modernized, and the woman at the desk insisted no other assistant worked there. When Mr. Squirrel's claims were later investigated, it was discovered that his envelopes had stopped being manufactured 15 years prior. So not only did he have a time slip, but he actually purchased something that only existed 15 years in the past.
And brought it back with him. That is bizarre. Oh.
Could you imagine that?
That would be completely different. There was a story I was reading. Now I can't remember whether they were for army personnel. They were just young boys. I think they were in like I don't know if it was like something like the Scouts or very early into their careers or something. But they went. They were running toward a town. Now I can't remember where this was. I don't know if it was in Germany or whatever, but I can look it up, but it's going to take a bit of time to track it back down. And they were running into a town. You could see like the church, the bell tower and all that kind of stuff as they were running in. But then as they ran, they hit a point where suddenly everything switched. The tower was gone. Certain buildings were gone. There was some of the buildings that were there became like more grass or older wooden buildings, haphazardly constructed. It looked a long time ago. They had actually looked in some of these buildings. They were all freaked out because they saw nobody around. Nobody. Like everybody was gone. And then they looked in a window of one house, and there was actually like a half butchered animal or something like that was in there. There was other house that had things set up like as if people were living there, but they didn't. These four of you started freaking out. They were like, "Oh my God, what's happening?" They looked around. They finally got the feeling like somebody was starting to watch them, and they weren't sure, but they couldn't see anybody, so they left. And as they ran back out of the town, they hit a certain spot, then felt like this is weird. It's changed, but they turned around, and there, lo and behold, was the update city. People walking around. The bell tower showed up. The whole bit. It was really bizarre, and of course, they really freaked out. But they found out later that the original town that was on the site from way back when actually was completely devastated, and every person in it died due to the Black Plague way back years and years and years before. So that is, could you like?
No.
I'm sorry, but if we're ever doing an investigation and that happens, I'm going to time slip right out of here.
Yeah, I'll be right behind you, figuring out a way to get far away from that place.
But I can't even imagine that happening. I mean, I would just be like, whoa.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that would be sensory overload. I don't know. Like, I don't, because it's hard to relate to anything because I've never experienced anything like these things. Like, even what Amy experienced, I'm trying to think of any examples, and I have none. Like,
I know I've seen little things, but it never really was never enough to say, hey, this is just bizarre. You know, you look once, you don't see it, look again, and it's there, right? I mean, I've had that happen lots, but
I've had like deja vu or things like that, but yeah, no, not a time slip, I don't think.
And
then like, yeah, seeing people that are no longer living, I've had that.
Yeah.
It's maybe not so much like, I know I always say like I want to find a full-bodied apparition. Maybe this is my way of doing it, but like, and it could be just a doppelganger, right? Like it's like you see someone that looks exactly like someone that you know that has passed away, but it's like you do a double take and it's like, wait, no, and then they're gone, right? It's like, did I? No, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
So is that a time slip again? I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I know I had a friend. Oh God, this was. I guess he was maybe in his very late teens, a long time ago, and he had something freaky happen to him, and he never forgot it. There was a certain house that every time he walked past, he got the creeps. Right.
Yeah.
Now the house is on like a normal street. It's on a regular everyday street, but it's near the end of the street.
And it was down the street. Yeah.
Yeah. So the house at the end of the street. Yeah. No, but it's. But it you know, it's regular. You go in, there's a cul-de-sac, there's a path that leads through to the next street, all that kind of stuff. And he used to walk it almost every day. And he was coming home from a friend's place, I think, if I remember correctly. And as he got to the house, right, he looked again because the house just threw him completely off. And when he looked at the house, he said he saw the house in black and white. Like it wasn't color like it normally is. It was black and white. And he said just looking at it terrified him to a point that he ran the rest of the way. Like this guy's 19 years old. He ran the rest of the way home. He would not. That's it. We could have called later and like, we're all like, you all right, dude? And he's like, no, you don't want it. So of course we finally said, okay, come on, let's go. So we walked back and the house was fine. It was there. But what the heck did he see?
That's weird. Like, why would you see it in black and white? Because even in the days when there was only black and white photography, everything was still in color.
Yeah, everything was still in color. That's the thing. The house looked fine, but right? For whatever reason, he saw it in complete. There was no color to the house whatsoever, and the whole concept of it left him terrified.
That's weird.
And I mean, not just afraid. He did not want to ever go past that house ever again, ever. And I mean, we can't. I mean, he was adamant. We can't explain what happened, but he was adamant about it. And yeah, just don't know. But it was a creepy one. Did you find the most probably one of the most known occurrences of time slip? Has a gentleman named by the name of Goddard?
No, I don't have that one.
Let me put it this way. While you're on your computer, look up. Hang on a second.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me while I type.
No, hang on. I'm getting there. Look up. Look up a gentleman
my typing face.
By Air Marshal Sir Victor Goddard.
Sir Victor?
Goddard.
Oh, it's coming up, yes.
Okay. So.
Okay. Oh.
Would you like to read it or shall I?
Hang on, I'm just, because like, the first thing comes up on is a Wikipedia thing about him, and then the second one is the paranormal and out of this world experiences.
That's the one you want to read. That's the one you want to read.
Hey, I gotta find the paranormal. Okay. Oh wow. Okay. Without reading it, like I'm kind of like skim reading it before, but hang on, I don't want to sign up for anything.
I can read it.
No, it says Victor Goddard was commanding a squadron during World War I when an air mechanic named Freddie Jackson was killed at the HM Naval Seaplane Training School, later known as the HMS Daedalus. Jackson had walked into a rotating propeller. That's horrible. And
no, that's not the story. But
hang on. On the day of Jackson's funeral, a crew from the Daedalus posed for a picture. When looking over the photo, they noticed a suspicious man in the top row. According to legend, the air mechanic had not yet realized he was dead, so showing up for the photo was a formality. One source claims the site where the photo was taken was also where Jackson met his untimely death.
Oh, well, that's just creepy in its own right. But that's not the one.
Yeah, this guy's apparently got many paranormal experiences.
So the one I'm talking about was basically this one. Let me just go back and find the beginning of this. In 1935, Goddard flew a Hawker Hart biplane to Edinburgh, Scotland from his home base in Andover, England. It was a weekend visit on a Sunday. Goddard decided to fly over an abandoned airfield at Drem, D-R-E-M, not far from Edinburgh. It was closer to his final destination than the airport at which he landed. Constructed during the First World War, Drem Airfield was not much to see. It was overgrown with foliage, and the hangars were falling apart. The former airport was now a farm, and cattle grazed where planes were once parked. On Monday, Goddard began the flight back to his home base, but he encountered a bizarre storm that gave him problems controlling his aircraft. He was flying in an open cockpit over mountainous terrain without radio navigational aids or cloud flying instruments. In the high winds of the storm's strange brown yellow clouds, he lost control of his plane, which began to spiral toward the ground. Goddard was unable to stop the spin, and he was uncertain of his location. Things looked really bad, and he feared that the rapid fall would lead to a crash into the mountains. He seemed to have little choice to come out of the clouds. As he looked around, he seemed to have little choice to come out of the clouds. As he looked around, he noticed that the sky was darker than ever, and the clouds were yellowish brown. Goddard was now flying at 150 miles per hour, and he was still falling. After what seemed like an eternity, he finally succeeded in leveling out his plane and managed to avoid a crash. At this point, something strange happened. He looked around trying to determine his location. To his surprise, he noticed that the sky was now suddenly bright with golden sunlight, and he was approaching the old abandoned airfield at Durham. As he looked around, Goddard noticed this was the same airfield, but yet everything was different. The hangars appeared to be new. There were 4 airplanes on the ground. 3 were familiar biplanes, but painted in an unfamiliar yellow. The 4th was a monoplane. This was really odd because the RAF had no such planes until 1935. The mechanics were dressed in blue overalls, which Goddard thought odd since all RAF mechanics dressed in brown overalls. Even more curious was that no one seemed to notice him. He was flying over the airfield, but none of the mechanics paid any attention to him and his aircraft. It was almost as if he was invisible to the people on the ground. Leaving the area, he began to encounter the storm again, but he managed to return to his home safely. Goddard told the other pilots about his unusual experience, but no one took him seriously. His friends thought he was either crazy or drunk, and Goddard decided to keep the story to himself for many years before finally, in 1966, he wrote down and revealed his strange encounter with an unknown place from a different time. In 1939, Goddard watched as RAF trainers began to be painted yellow and the mechanics switched to blue coveralls. The RAF introduced a new training monoplane, exactly like the ones he had seen in his flight over Drem. It was called the Magister. He learned that the airfield in Drem had been refurbished. So, did Goddard, for a brief moment, experience time travel into the future?
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool.
I was reading as you were telling that story. It says apparently Victor Goddard's paranormal experiences had a major impact on him. They never left him. While he spent his later life in education, he still read and lectured about flying saucers. He also pushed Sir George, I'm going to butcher this name, Trevelyan, I don't know, 4th Baronet, to create the Rican Trust, a group focused on spiritual education. Goddard also wrote books about the paranormal, including 1975's Flights Towards Reality, where he made the case for extrasensory perception.
That's the one. That's what this book is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty good. The guy had a lot more going than just flying over an abandoned airfield.
Yeah. It says another paranormal experience he had. It said later in life, Victor Goddard was at a party being held in his honor in Shanghai, China. While there, he overheard Gerald Gladstone, captain of the HMS Black Prince, telling other partygoers about a dream he'd recently had. In the dream, Goddard had died in a plane crash over the coast of Asia, the cause of which was atmospheric icing. The airman told Gladstone, "I'm not quite dead yet. What made you think I was?" Ironically enough, a flight Goddard took over Asia had many similarities to Gladstone's dream. He was in the air with 2 civilian men and 1 woman. The weather turned bad and the aircraft had to make a crash landing on the Japanese island of Sado. Thankfully, all the passengers aboard survived the crash.
Wow.
So I know it has nothing to do with time slips because that's how our show goes. We always start in one place and end up in a different place. But it's like we've touched on dreams too, right? Like it's almost like premonitions, if you will.
Well, that would be. I wonder if they have sleep. If a dream is actually just like when you do that in your dreams, whether it's just another form of a time slip, it's just your mind's experiencing it and not your waking, right? Like,
well, it's weird because like when I was a really young boy, like I'm talking 3-4 years old, a man that was dating my birth mother, he worked for Arrow Trucking Company. For whatever reason, and they still exist today. For whatever reason, this morning I woke up and I thought about Arrow Trucking Company. I have no idea why. I just was like, that's weird. I haven't seen those trucks lately. Today I drove to North Vancouver, and on my way back, looked up my window beside me, and there was an Arrow Trucking Company truck that passed me on the highway. Why do these thoughts enter your head? That wasn't even a dream. That was just a thought that entered your mind that is like, I haven't seen those trucks in a long time. All of a sudden, bam, there's one on the highway.
But then again, who's to say you weren't already there already?
Oh,
Or as Kay said,
I was already foreshadowing seeing one on the highway. That is bizarre.
well, no, you weren't. No, you were foreshadowing seeing something on the highway, but the other you in the other reality had already seen it on the highway. So, welcome to the multiverse of madness.
I need it. There's no reason. There's no wonder why I need an Advil after we do these shows. Karen says, crazy when that happens. Karen, have you had something similar happen like that where you think of something just randomly, you're kind of wondering, why am I thinking about this? And then like hours later, all of a sudden, it's like, you're thinking, oh, you know what? I haven't had Lifesavers candy in a long time. All of a sudden you like open a drawer and there's some Lifesavers in there. Like,
Oh, yeah, I've done stuff. Get that? This was the weirdest event that ever. Now this has nothing. I don't think it has anything to do with time slipping because it's so abstract. Okay, but years ago, a friend of mine, Doug, he used, when we were kids, he always slept over and stuff like that. We had sleepovers and stuff like that, and he came over to our apartment one day. He was crashing over for the night, and in the morning, we had both woken up, and we looked over at each other and went, "What the was that?" And we both said it like literally simultaneously. And I said, "Did you have a dream last night?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Did you?" And I went, "Yeah." And apparently, what had happened was I had a dream that, so we lived up on the 11th floor, right? And I had a dream for some reason, because we were always bad kids. We were always throwing stuff off balconies and using slingshots and everything else, right? Just stupid stuff, right? But I had a dream that you were downstairs, you'd climb up to a couple balconies and you'd jump off. And you'd land, and your feet, your legs were like springs. You just spring and you'd roll and you'd get up, and oh, well, you go up higher and higher, and we kept going up and up and up. And it was just like one of those dreams, like thinking, oh, that's the only dream I had. I had the exact same dream that he did at the same time, same night, same place. I can't even explain how that would possibly happen.
No.
But it was, and we both like, oh, I had exactly the same dream. And we're just like, what? I mean, it's bizarre. It's bizarre. What did Karen say?
What Karen said, it's like a phone call thinking of someone and then they call.
Good example, Karen. Bang on the money.
Good example. It's in the case I had today, it's almost like thinking of someone that I haven't seen in or even thought of in years, and then them phoning, right? Like for me, it's like I had zero reason to think about that trucking company. Zero reason. Like there's like nothing to. No.
Well, have you ever walked over the phone and picked it up and went hello, and somebody goes, it didn't even ring yet.
Okay, speaking of phone, I got a creepy one for you. Okay, so yesterday I come home from work and my son, he right away, he's like, I have to tell you something. I'm like, okay. He says, I was getting ready to take the dogs out to go outside, do their business, and the phone rang. So I kind of paused for a minute. I didn't want to pick up the phone because I already had the dog in my hand to take her down, whatever. And all I could hear was breathing.
Oh, man.
And I said, well, that's weird. He goes, yeah, listen to it on the machine. Because that's what it went to the answering machine. I said, okay, whatever. So I went over to the machine. There's nothing there. There's no message.
Okay.
The phone number is there. It shows that the phone rang and it shows the phone number. It doesn't say who it was. It just says phone number. He says there was only breathing coming through.
Oh, no, that's oh.
That was just yesterday. So I'm just like, dude. So of course today I come home and first thing I said to him, like, any phone calls?
any heavy breathing?
Any heavy breathing today? No? You good?
Oh,
okay, good.
have you ever you've gone out, you're walking along the street, you're walking somewhere, you're doing something, working or otherwise, anything, you'd be doing anything. And then suddenly you're like, something gets your attention. You look something, you do something, your phone rings, something happens, and you stop, and then 4 feet in front of you, something else happens, and had you been there, it would have been catastrophic.
Yeah.
I mean, that is so. It's like, is something foreseeing that, and it just changed your destiny. I mean,
That brings up the whole guardian angel type thing.
yeah. Well, yeah, that's for another whole story, I think. I mean, yeah. I mean, I've had, I don't know how many discussions I've had lately about the little voice in the back of your head. There's been, I don't know, probably, I would say in the last 2 weeks, I've probably talked to 6 people about that little voice. Right? What is it? Why is it? Why does it exist? Who is it? And I'm like, well, it's you. Well, what do you mean it's you? If it was me, I'd be talking to myself. I said, well, not exactly you.
No, they say that there's like a percentage of the population that doesn't have that little voice in your head.
Really?
I couldn't imagine life without that little voice in my head.
Karen says consciousness, conscience, and it's more than just conscience, though. Your conscience is like when you feel then you've done something, you're like, oh, I feel either really good about this, real bad about this, but no, it's more than that. Okay, but you know what? That's a whole other ball game. We'll have to get into that another day, folks. I mean, it's you know what? I hate to say it, but the time just slipped right by.
I was waiting for it. I'm looking at the time and I'm going, here it comes. There's going to be a time and a slip in there somewhere.
That's right. That's right. It had to slip right by, guys. It had to slip right by. Wow. I mean, it's been great. I mean, I'm we know that we put off the every 2 weeks on what we've been doing, and we'll be back again next month. It's a summertime. Everybody's got things to do. So I mean, as the summer ends and the winter begins, I'm sure we'll get back to a little bit more often. But it was really good that y'all came along and joined us tonight. It was awesome to see you still, and everybody's like, "Yay, they're back!" I'm like, "Yay, that's awesome." So it's really good, and what can I say? It's been a hell.
It is good, and just like always, even though it's going to be another month until our next show. If anyone like this subject came about because of Amy and an experience she had. If someone else has an experience that they had, maybe not a time slip, but another paranormal experience that they can't explain, want to share it with us, by all means. And we could change names if you want to. We don't have to say your name or who you are or anything like that. But
it'd be like that Dragnet. Bum, 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 bum. You'll change the names to protect the innocent.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
Karen will now become Brenda. Yeah.
You watch somebody, Brenda will be watching and go, what do you mean it wasn't me? It'll be more like person A was talking to person B and
person K and person G.
Oh, you can't say person K.
No, Karen doesn't want to be a Brenda.
Karen's like, no. Oh, for sure. Oh, right. My Lord. Well, folks, we're down to about a minute left on the show, so I'm not going to keep y'all. Thank you so much again for joining us on Off the Cuff Paranormal, and myself, Daryl, and
this guy wearing the what are they? Palm trees.
Palm trees. There you go. Black and white palm trees.
Palm trees. It's hot down here. Come on.
All right. Well, from Daryl and
Mike,
we want to wish you all a very good night, and we'll see you in a month. All right. Good night, folks, and thanks for joining us. Everybody.